of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful summer day. Just a reminder to silence your cell phones, please. Councilor Lawrence may join us by Zoom. I don't know if he's there yet. Our first order of business, public announcements. Details may be found at www.fairfieldme.com. Fairfield is hiring at Crossroads TV, Fire and Public Works Department. Contact the town office for more information. Lawrence Public Library comprehensive program details online and via Lawrence Public Library social media. Summer reading for all ages started June 23rd. There's still time to sign up and win prizes for competing reading challenges. Other events and activities for summer reading will be happening throughout the summer. Please find more information on our Facebook page or give us a call. Summer reading program. Showing of the Super Mario Brothers movie and the library concession stand Monday, July 7th at 1:00 p.m. Patron pass to the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens is back this summer. Call the library for more details and reserve tickets. Non-emergency services will be closed July 4th in observance of Independence Day. Second order of business, public hearings. We have none. Third order of business, public comments. These will be limited to 3 minutes. Members of the public may speak to the council or request an opportunity to speak on a specific item that is on the agenda or may email comments to the council to info@fairfield-me.gov by 4 p.m. day of the meeting. Submitted content may be read aloud at this time. Do we have anybody that would like to speak or reserve time to speak on an item on the agenda? Max?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to reserve time for the seventh order of business, item 25-66, the Environmental Committee.
Okay. Sabrina?
We have on this Saturday is the public supper at the Fairfield Grange, running from 4 to, I think, 6:30. It's the bean supper, as usual, our monthly one. And then
Is that the 27th, Sabrina?
I'm sorry, yes, Saturday.
27th.
Yep. And it'll be a rainy day, so it'll be a perfect place to come. I also have one for the ATV and snowmobile safety combination course in Fairfield. It's going to be at the fire department, and that will be on July 13th at 9 a.m. It's $10 per student. Lunch is provided, and it's for and they can register children and adults. Do I get this right, Kevin? Yep, all right. So there it is. So love to see people and their kids come out and learn the safety of running the the ATVs and snowmobiles. And that's it.
When is that one again?
July
When is it?
13th.
Oh, gosh. You have to make me keep talking, don't you, Matt? July 13th at 9 a.m.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. I think it runs from 9 to 4 is what I believe, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
I believe we meet again before that, so we can
I'll probably put it on
announce
here
that again.
Yeah.
We meet again the 9th, Michelle?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll announce that again too, Sabrina.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Would anyone else like to reserve any time? Okay. Seeing none. Fourth order of business, reports from staff and committees. Town manager report.
Okay, so yesterday I attended KVCOG's annual meeting and planning day event. It was down in Augusta. They approved their 25-26 operating budget, and then also there was a very interesting training session that day on AI that was led by Maine Municipal Association staff. Needless to say, it's just going to involve more policies for us and new policies for us on how to deal with AI and our staff and our elected officials. The insurance company, we're relatively certain, is going to have a draft anyway that will be eligible for municipalities to help, and we've already reached out to our IT folks so to make sure those things are there. So then also just for some project updates, in your packets you would have received amendments to the installment of tax from SAD 49. Basically what this is the proceeds from the sale of Fairfield Primary. at which they sold that building to KV Cap. The town did receive the proceeds from that sale minus any costs. The amount is $83,391.50. So the way that works is that goes against what our final payment for June was supposed to be. We had already made our final payment. We did receive a reimbursement check from them this morning, so the accounts will be adjusted accordingly. And then also in regards to MSAD 49, I did speak to the superintendent today. It appears as though July 24th will be the next MSAD 49 budget meeting, and then September 2nd, the day after Labor Day, will be the referendum election. And just so, there is a state statute that deals with the failure to pass a budget. It's Title 20A, Section 1487. Basically, if the budget for the operation of the regional school unit is not approved prior to July 1st, the latest budget approved at a regional school unit's budget meeting, which they had on May 13th, and that was submitted to voters for validation for a referendum in accordance with other sections of law, is automatically considered the budget for operational expenses for the ensuing year until a final budget is approved, which means the school board has the right to send us an assessment based upon what was approved at that May 13th meeting until they get a budget passed again later. I did go back and look. We did not make a payment in July when the budget failed the last time, but we made a double payment in August prior to the election, so I think it took them a while to figure out they needed to send us an assessment for that. But also, the last section of that law is what is really important to the town council, is that if the budget of a regional school unit is not approved and validated before July 1, and the officers of an affected municipality determine that the property taxes must be committed in a timely manner to the collector, the municipal assessor may commit the property taxes on the basis of the latest budget approved at a regional school unit budget meeting, which means we can take that amount that was approved in May and use that to commit taxes. Nobody needs to make that decision today. I'm just letting you know those things are out there, and I can send you these sections of this law if you need that. But we did a great deal of research on this today.
Can I stop you real quick? So is that the referendum?
No. So there's
Well,
two different
that
things.
went-
The school budget meeting, which is the one that was held at the school.
Yeah, but that's
And-
to send it to referendum vote.
But that's the budget meeting, and then there's the referendum validation. So the way the law is written, because members of our collective community showed up at the school in May and voted on that budget that they voted on is the budget they get to use.
Even though that budget was to send it to a referendum vote
Exactly.
and did not pass,
Correct.
they still get to use.
Correct.
Wow.
I didn't write the law.
And maybe we can talk about it more, but if it gets, the next budget gets approved and it's a lower amount, I'm
Then-
sure there are,
The assessment would change.
yeah. So
Right, so the amount that we had-
The town has to, yeah.
The amount
send
that
out
we
a
had
different-
committed would be less.
Right.
And we wouldn't commit that amount, we wouldn't spend that amount
Right.
because the assessment would change. That committed amount that's over would obviously go to the undesignated fund balance. You'd just use that the following year to offset the
I
next
thought the
round.
state law said it reverted back to the last passed budget.
It says,
Not a referendum, not a vote to send it to referendum. The past budget, which is a referendum vote. I'd like some clarification, because why would they even hold another vote?
well, that's why.
They don't need to.
That's why you also have that referendum question, because you could vote to not have the referendum portion.
Right, but we did, we
But this
voted to keep it.
specifically
What's the purpose of
states,
having the vote now?
Exactly.
right? I'm
Who do
just
we-
reading, I just read to you
No,
what
I
the law said.
understand, but who do we get for clarification? I'm not going to trust where it came from. I'd like legal.
So-
If the state law, the way I interpret it, states that they will revert back to the past budget that passed, not the referendum budget that was sent to referendum vote that did not pass. The prior school year's budget is the last budget that has passed. The referendum failed.
This says budget meeting, and what happened in May was the last budget meeting. Thought I brought a copy of those laws with me. But we
Okay.
certainly can get you the information, absolutely. Well,
I just don't,
I'll
why
get
would
you
they
copies of the
why would they
law.
even hold another vote? They don't
Well,
need to.
I can look into see if Maine Municipal Association has any additional guidance on the
Yeah.
matter, because they do represent both, and see if there's anything that they have for clarification, because we certainly are not the only school district in which this has happened this year. So
Yeah,
I'm
22
something's
school
gonna be out
districts
there.
did not pass.
Yeah.
And this
So-
happened to us in 19, and that's not the process we used back then.
We'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
So, anyway, that's where that stands. And then also, there have been several questions and rumors surrounding a new ambulance that was parked at the fire station from June 12th through June 20th. This vehicle was brought to the station by Autotronics. This is the same company we were working with previously regarding a potential used ambulance purchase. So it was brought down to the fire station for the EMS staff to evaluate with regards to vehicle setup and its size as it relates to the space available in the station. It was only supposed to be there for the weekend. It ended up being there a little bit longer by the time they could come back and pick it up. Municipal departments have often used these type of interactions with our vendors so that purchases, if ever made, it is done so with a clear and understanding of all possible effects of that type of investment and what type of effects they will entail. Any such purchase would require town council's approval at a publicly held meeting. Also, if an item such as this is donated to the municipality, the town council would need to vote to accept the donation at a publicly held meeting. Conspiracy theories are fun and typically lead to a large amount of social media traffic, but the simple truth is a phone call, an email, stop in and have a conversation with any of our municipal employees or council members could easily handle these types of questions so they don't get blown up into all of these conspiracy theories. I had people calling me from the town of Benton. I've had all kinds of stuff. So we're just looking at it. In fact, I believe some vendors brought some stuff for Bruce to look at when we were looking into the skid steer bids. Same thing happens. We do it all the time. So thank you. That's it for me.
Council Thibodeau, Economic Development.
I have nothing to report other than we're not meeting in July because of July 4th.
Building Committee is not available yet. We're still looking for a couple members, I believe, for Building Committee.
I think they were at 5.
There are 5,
I
okay,
think there
but
are
we can
5.
have up
I mean,
to
we can have
7.
up to 7. They
Okay.
are meeting July 1st to go over, the RFPs when those come in.
Okay. Dr. Townsend.
PFAS Committee, Environmental Committee, actually being discussed a little bit later, so.
Okay. I think that's it for committees. Fifth order of business, consent agenda. These items are considered routine or standard business and therefore will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered next on the agenda. Item 25-62, ordered that the Fairfield Town Council hereby waives the reading of and accepts the minutes for meeting number 2025-11 held on June 11th, 2025. Item 25-63, order that the Town Council hereby approves the Treasurer's Warrant number 134, General Fund in the amount of $242,911.63, including but not limited to KSTD, Secretary of State Motor Vehicles, MMEHT, and B&H Photo Video. Item 25-64, order that the Town Council hereby approves and signs a sewer certificate of commitment in the amount of $152,029.50 for the fourth quarter fiscal year. Sewer billing for the period of 4/1/2025 through 6/30/2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Council Thibodeau, seconded by Council Townsend. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Sixth order of business, old council business. Website, new website is in development and under staff review. I know Brittany's still being out. It's getting close. Michelle and staff are reviewing. There are a lot of items being transferred over that are duplicate or wrong, so they want to make sure we have the correct information when we migrate over completely. So hopefully that will be up and running soon. Again, short-staffed, but it's not far out. Fairfield Benton Fire Agreement, collaborations with the town of Benton continue. I don't think we have any new news since the last meeting.
Who else works on that with you? It's yourself?
Travis.
And Travis?
Travis.
Yep.
And then we coordinate with the chair, which is Robin Sear, who I did
Okay.
talk to this week. And they're still, Monday night was their first meeting since they met with us. So we hope to get together again soon.
Okay.
But
The community center grant, the appliance acquisition is in process. Spoke with Michelle today. Can you give us a little more information where we
So
stand?
all of the appliances have been purchased, and we're just working on scheduling that delivery and that final part of the install. Of course, the refrigerator is plug and play. We'll have to deal with we'll find out when the dishwasher gets here, whether or not it's going to require any electrical upgrades or not, but we feel like it's going to be fine. So we'll see, but should be here soon.
Good progress, we're getting close.
Yes, we are.
It's just about done.
Yes. Stabilization of Fire Department and Police Department, RFPs are due July 1st, 2025 at 10 a.m. Have we received any RFPs yet?
Nothing.
No.
And no inquiries,
Okay.
unless they've reached out directly to department heads, but I'm not aware of any.
Administrative fee schedule, the fee comparisons with surrounding areas regarding taxi licenses, facility rental, building and land use permits, etc. Still ongoing? Okay.
And that's probably not going to wrap up until after the town clerk gets back. So
Okay.
When is she looking at her?
she's due back after the middle of July.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
Seventh order of business, to take action on the following items of business. Item 25-65, order that the town council hereby approves bids for skid steer and attachments. Funds to come from the Public Works Capital Equipment Reserve account and the natural gas TIF account. So we should all have
there's a spelling
report from
mistake in
Bruce
there.
on the bids that came in. Bruce, you want to please address that?
What you got for questions? Lowest bid was $93,338 from Milton Cat. Very tight bidding, as you see in my recommendation.
And they had all of the requirements, right?
They
That you
met all the
requested?
requirements, that's correct, them and MB Tractor both.
You talked about the difference in warranty, and you like talk about
5 years. The machine we have right now is 24 years old, and it has 4,400 hours, so the hours stay kind of low, so the more years we can get out of a warranty is just better for us. MB Tractor was 2 years, Matt.
that's an either or. I mean,
Yeah, 2 years, yes.
Thanks.
And Milton Cat was 5 or 2,500 hours.
I like that sound.
Kevin?
Yeah, I got some questions on
Yeah,
this.
sure.
A couple of things is, I'm trying to look at priorities for what you may need. I don't remember if it was last year or not, but as far as like dump trucks and other equipment, we're looking at $95,000 at a time that here, next couple items down on the agenda, we're talking about using contingency funds. If you had to prioritize the equipment, I don't know if this question would be for the town manager, Michelle, or you, what would it be and where does this fit on there? The reason why I ask that is, doing the math, 4,500 hours on a 2001 piece of equipment, that's 187 hours a year that we use that, 16 hours a month. I'm sure we could spend $95,000 on a piece of equipment, you're gonna use a lot more.
It's not so much the hours, Kevin, it's the use. It's used in salt, so there is a lot of rust. You can see by the trade values, they're not offering a lot of trade because of these issues. If I was gonna prioritize, I'd give you a whole list and ask you to bond some money. So,
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I see this on the agenda, and I'm trying to think of what we really need. And I understand the condition that may not match the low hours, I get that.
You know, along with this, I'm trying to replace a 35-year-old sickle bar mower that we mow roadside with, that we're having issues getting parts for and maintaining, keeping it together. It's a sickle bar mower that's been here since I've been with the town.
Yeah, I'm not questioning
Okay.
the need for it
Okay.
at all.
Okay, so-
I'm not questioning the need for it at all and what it can do for our town. What I questioned was where that fits in priorities of other things that we may be needing. Because right now, there's 140 in the reserve account-ish, 220 in the TIF account-ish. And we're talking about taking $95,000 out of that right now. I know the bid is good until the end of December. I honestly would like to see us hold off until we get a better idea of what our finances are gonna be with the school budget and everything, because then we can pull the trigger. We have until December to hold up this offer.
This is a separate account, though. This is an equipment reserve account within Public Works, correct?
Correct. This falls under Public Works Equipment Reserve Account, which currently has $94,155 in it, and we just approved in this budget that will go into it for, I'm sorry, wrong line. Public Works has $110,503. We're going to put $115,000 back into that account after the first of the year, when we start the new fiscal year, because that was what our capital reserve appropriation is. And our natural gas TIF account has $471,065.17 in it.
As how much?
$471,000.
Okay, must have been looking at something wrong.
What you're looking at is the expense detail of what's been spent, not what's, and what's in there for the fiscal year. What you're not looking at is what's in our capital reserves general ledger account.
Okay, well, I didn't have that information.
And that's fine, so, but that's where that is. So these pieces of equipment, we do have a police plow truck that we did purchase. It was $244,000. We're still waiting on that.
It is in Maine. It's at the bodybuilders. We should have it by
Right.
October.
It's taken us a year to get that, so we very much prioritize what we need for equipment and try to fit it in when we can. This natural gas TIF has the ability for you to use funds from the TIF district for roads that are affected by the construction of the natural gas pipeline. So one of the biggest things that this piece of equipment will do is the roadside mowing and the brush cutting that's in the ditch line. You wouldn't be able to hire this out over the course of 2 years for this price. It would cost us more than that to have those things maintained.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand the need for the equipment. I was just questioning if it made fiscal sense based off, obviously, I didn't have the numbers in front of me.
Right.
I was looking at what we had here regardless, I guess, of the number, of how that gets moved around. I questioned if it was the right timing right now, considering that bid is valid until December, when we'll potentially be on more stable ground regarding what our budget's gonna be. Not our budget, but what we're gonna be.
But our reserves are already spent. I mean, we've already been allocated,
They've already been allocated.
so.
So there hasn't been a motion yet. We're
so
in
the only-
discussion as well, but
The only question, well, yeah, so we can have.
Go ahead.
So I would move to accept the bid from Milton Cat for $93,338 for the skid steer and related equipment and attachments.
And I'll second that.
motion by Dr. Townsend, second by Councilor Thibodeau.
Sorry, yeah, discussion. So I think, to your point, I think I totally understand. I think you're having a really good point of like looking at, where does this make sense? And I always trust the department heads that it meets what their needs are. My only concern is how much is coming from their reserve account, the public works, or the reserve equipment account, and how much is coming from the TIF account. I don't know if you're.
And I would like to request that it'd be $20,000 come from the TIF, because we will use this piece of equipment on all roads that are affected by the gas pipeline installation. So it makes sense that it wouldn't wouldn't be all of them, but if you think about the Center Road, you think about Oakland Road, you think about if there was anything in town that we needed to do, all of those areas that are affected by the gas pipeline. So it was just a smaller piece of this. So it's not even half, but just a smaller piece of it.
Do you need a separate motion for that?
I would just like you to amend your motion that if you do approve this for 93,338 to come from the Public Works Capital Reserve account, Capital Equipment Reserve account, that with $20,000 coming from the natural gas pipeline too.
And so I would amend my, my motion to have $73,338 coming from Milton Cat and $20,000 coming from the natural gas TIF.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
I'm still a little unclear on how the money works.
Okay.
I understand that we have the money in the accounts right now. Would it do us any good to wait to figure out what is happening with the school budget if we're talking about?
It's not going to come from this reserve account. We're not going to move those funds into our contingency fund. TIF money has to be spent for specific
But that's
things
only
within that TIF
20,000. Now we're
district.
talking 70,000.
Michelle?
Yeah.
So maybe I can help explain it. So the funds that we're looking to use are funds that have already been set aside. They're already in existence in a designated account for these types of purposes. What happens with the school will have no bearing on the balances of these accounts whatsoever. These funds have been appropriated for specific purposes. So when you appropriate money for capital equipment reserve for public works, you can't spend that money on anything else other than capital equipment for public works. The monies within the TIF district are designated specifically for specific projects, which I'm planning that TIF training for July, hopefully. Those can't be spent on anything else other than what we've already said they were. So those monies already exist in what is considered a general ledger account. It's basically our savings accounts for these specific lines. So I'm thinking what you're looking at, is it an expense detail report? Is that what that says at the very
It
top?
just shows what the balance was.
Yeah, so but at the very top line, does it say expense that you've highlighted there? Is it
Expense summary report.
expense summary report? So what that is that's the funds that were in existence for this year's budget. So in an expense report for our current fiscal year, the expense listed for the capital reserve account is the amount of money that was appropriated at town meeting. So the $110,000 is what's in there for the expense. We also use that account as that account number for when we purchase things from the from the capital reserve account. At the end of the fiscal year, those expenses get moved to the general ledger capital reserve account that gives us our ending balance. So what we do throughout the course of the year, I have this account here. So capital reserves for public works. So this is just to help you follow the flow. We started the fiscal year 7/1/24 with $388,033.79. The revenue for 24-25 was $110,000. That was this year, this past June's town meeting, this past town meeting appropriation. Our expenses that we've spent this year is $143,524. That was the loader that we purchased. And then what we have is pending $244,006. That's the dump truck. So that leaves us with a balance of $110,503. This sheet will change next year so that the balance is whatever it is. And then the revenue is going to be the $115,000 and then the expenses that we have coming out of there. So like I said, so as of right now, he has $110,503. More than enough to fully cover this. But we're only going to take $73,338, and then out of the TIF district, we're going to take $20,000. So the TIF district started with $691,796.64. Its revenue isn't in here yet because that's after all the tax collection. We've had an expense of $220,731.47, so it has a balance of $471,6517.
Are we limited by the percentage that the TIF can and provide for this?
It has no, we are not. But but you have to be able to pass the straight face test. So the way it's listed is anything that's outside the TIF district is road and sidewalk repair. Repair, replace, and improvements to roads and sidewalks that are outside the TIF district, but that have been degraded with the resulting diminishing useful life due to the pipeline installation. It estimates $25,000 a year over the course of 5 years. 15 years. It's not an exact science in TIF districts, but you got to be able to pass a straight face test. Are 50% of the roads that we're going to use the skid steer on affected by the gas pipeline? They're not.
No, but if we plan to get 25 years worth of usage out of it, like we did with the pass machine, I would think that the TIF could provide more money to that.
If you use that kind of math, but if you think about it, the fact of the one time, right? So that's the basis that we used. You could use more than the 20 if you wish.
I think it would be wise to use the TIF money. We got,
I like that idea myself. I at least like to go 50/50 on it.
you know, leave us more in the,
Is the TIF going to continue to grow? Is that
The
done?
gas pipeline TIF actually expires in just a couple more years. It's got to be gone. It's,
So we don't lose the funds because the TIF expires. It's still going to grow.
you have to use them. What happens is, no, they won't grow.
It won't
Once the
grow.
TIF expires, it stops growing.
That's
So
a
you
big-
have to use the funds by the time the program is over. This TIF, the gas pipeline TIF, it also continues with the industrial road TIF. It won't grow as much because the only thing it grows from is what the development is in the industrial road track. So it won't grow nearly as much as what it does right now because of the gas pipeline. The gas pipeline TIF was only 15 years. The industrial road TIF was 30. It does have portability, like you can move the funds from this TIF district to the downtown TIF district, so you can move it out. And it did have the ability for you to use the gas pipeline, appropriate, portion of it towards things that are outside the district, because it's everywhere.
How many years are left on the gas pipeline TIF?
I'm working up to that page.
I would like to add with the straight face test that we're also using this machine for sweeping. So the broom, the sweeper, and when you and I spoke, Michelle, we were mainly talking about the mowing of the in-town streets as well. So it just helps with the straight face test if we're going to use more funds.
Right. Gas pipeline tract expires 28-29 fiscal year. Not many years left.
I mean, if we can do it,
Yeah.
I think
I'm
we're
actually-
prudent I'd split it 50/50.
And I think we're talking about the brushing, and we
Yeah.
can make a case for that. And I think I'm still good with a straight face. So,
So do we need another motion?
We need
for
to, do we vote down that motion? Can we?
You could-
Vote on that motion
Yep.
and vote now and just do a new one. It'd be
Yep.
cleaner.
Let's do that. So the vote as the motion is read currently was 73,000 out of equipment reserve and 20,000 out of the TIF district. All
Correct.
those in favor? All those opposed? 4 noes. I need a new motion.
so is the, we go 50/50.
46,669. $46,669.
Right. I would move to accept the bid from Milton Cat for the skid steer and attachments in the amount of $46,669 to come from the reserve fund and $46,669 to come from the natural gas TIF.
Second?
Okay, so motion by Councilor Townsend, second by Councilor Kitchen. Any other discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Bruce.
Item 25-66, order that town council hereby appoints members to the environmental committee.
Max just left the room.
Max just left.
Yeah.
So we have an appointment for Max,
And from
and
for me.
Dr. Townsend as well. How many does that give you now?
2.
two.
And when are we closing?
So that is actually supposed to be, actually, I think, I have to look at my dates. Was it actually to
It was last Thursday.
last Thursday? Yeah, it was just
19th or something.
But you can certainly extend
Yeah.
it.
So that'd be my first. We have two parts. I guess I'd like to accept the applicants as they have applied, but also to extend the acceptance for more applications.
Okay.
So
we got a motion to accept the current applicants, Max Kenny and Matthew
second it.
Townsend. And then also extend the date for application.
and I'm not sure what that should look like, but probably our,
End of the month.
yeah, I would say so, something, our second meeting in July,
Yeah.
which is
The
the
9th. Is it the 9th?
23rd.
23rd.
July
23rd.
23rd.
I just guess I'd like to speak on behalf of Max Kenny, and I'm sure he will get up and speak as well, but he was a major contributor to our first PFAS committee with lots of good questions and was always in attendance. So I really appreciated his input, and I think it was nice to have a younger demographic in a committee, so that's always a good thing, and being involved. So Max was a major part of that committee. Myself, I really enjoyed running that, being part of that committee, and I was fortunate enough to chair the first committee. I think we did a lot of hard work and came up with some really good results, and I think I'd like to continue forward with that. So I know Kevin was a big part of that, and hopefully will apply as well. So then, if a couple more out there, we'd love to have you.
It's a very important committee. With all the work that's been done already, a lot of information was brought, a lot of expertise by the people currently on that committee, and I hope they will continue. I really do. Max asked for time to speak. Max, you want to come to the podium?
I don't have much to say other than I would appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve on that committee. We have a lot of challenges that are going to be hitting all of the residents pretty squarely in the face in the next couple of years around PFAS and various concerns associated with the contamination. So I do think it is a really important committee to continue, and I do hope that we have additional residents that step up and want to be part of that as we move forward.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Max.
Max.
Yes. So we have a motion by Dr. Townsend, seconded by Councilor Thibodeau. Any other discussion on the two applicants so far?
And the extension of.
And the extension to July 23rd. Okay, seeing no more discussion, all those in favor?
I'll abstain.
3-0, 1 abstain.
Thank you.
Councilor Kitchen, I hope you will apply again for that
I will.
position.
Fully space it off.
I-
Shame on me.
Yeah, but before we get into the next item, every member that volunteers for these committees, regardless of its building, economic development, planning board, environmental, I'm extremely grateful. Takes a lot of time out of people's lives, and the experience that somebody like a Max or you guys bring to the table, it only makes it much more informative when it comes to us. And I just want to thank everybody that volunteers, budget committee, every committee we have. So it's very important that we continue to get volunteers from the community. Item 25-67, order the town council hereby approves the distribution of the 2025-2026 annual town budget meeting general government appropriation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Thibodeau, seconded by Councilor Townsend. Any discussion?
I guess I would like Michelle, if you can go over the numbers and see how that works for you, and I'd appreciate that.
So the way that this worked is because it affects 5 different departments, I sat down and took a look at what could you use for wiggle room and why. So general assistance was adjusted down from 10,000 to 7,000 because, quite frankly, you have to provide general assistance regardless of what the law happens with what you appropriate. So I did move it down, but if you look at our history, we've always used $10,000 and a $5,000 revenue offset, just to be sure we just had a good buffer. We haven't come anywhere close to using $7,000 in years. So I felt comfortable moving that to the 7. I adjusted your legal down to 11,270, only because it just had to make up some math. Anything major for legal is going to go through our insurance company anyway. We haven't spent that kind of money in legal in a long time. The closest we came to it was the year that we spent almost $13,000 cleaning up a section at Robert Dale's. But other than that, our legal budget remains usually well with under $10,000 a year, but we budget in case. Elections, there wasn't any wiggle room within that budget to move anything. Insurances, which is all of our liability insurances, workers' comp, unemployment, fleet insurance for our vehicles, there was no wiggle room within that one, so that one has been left the same. The administration budget does have the amount of raises were decreased down from 7% to 5%, as well as the overtime line was decreased from 1,000 to 500. And that's it. There was nothing else to move within that budget. And so that's where that's at.
Is it 7% to 5%? My paper's showing 3.87.
That's the whole thing overall, that's not wages. So that number includes wages, insurances, FICA, retirement. Yes, so wages and benefits are only up 3.87% with a 5% raise. Wages and benefits were only up 6.23% to begin with.
And general assistance is typically reimbursed through the state.
So it gets reimbursed at 70% through the state, as long as
Okay.
it's a valid piece.
Okay.
Yep. And then when we get to the next line of contingency, which is going to happen next, when we lead up into that, this is a standard article, which for new
vote on
councilors,
this
you've
one
got to be
first.
aware of that. But yes,
Yep.
and you'll see why that this is going to be okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the appropriation of that article?
Seems like it meets the requirements that we passed in the budget, so. And it looks like we can still carry on and probably not have any effects. So thank you.
Kevin?
I have some questions more so. It was based off the 3.87%, so I looked at this budget as assuming that that was for wages. First and foremost, I'd like to say that I feel that our employees, the COLA was 3.2, deserve whatever that percent. It turned out to be 5.5%, what she was saying. However, I went off of that, and I went through kind of the same thing she did, and I came up with $3,900 difference that we could increase that to a 4.4%, but it took to help our town employees, but it sounds like it's a moot point because they're at 5%.
Yep.
But thanks for the legwork.
Yes.
What's that?
And
But thanks for the legwork.
ultimately, it was a dollar amount that we needed to shave
Right.
within the article, whatever the target was.
So
The vote
it's-
was for 28,000 to come off that
So
particular
I'll
article.
just say, for example, line 24, looking at the history, I ballpark $2,000, which would give us 500. Line 3 on elections and legal, only because I'm not knowing, again, looking at history, we budgeted 7,000. I penciled in 500, which will give us, or 5,000, which will give us an additional 2,000. If that worked. And then, again, I just looking at numbers, I don't know the meat on the bone, so to speak. Line 13 on the same page, voting machine setup. We budgeted $4,400, an increase 74%. Based off history, if we change that to 3,000, that would give us 1,400, which would give us an additional $3,900 to put towards line 3 for wages and benefits. But like I said, that would move that number to a 4.4% total, but it's kind of a moot point. I was trying to figure out what we could do to help our employees out and still get,
Right.
they're important people to keep them
Right.
keep them around. I did have one question for Michelle, though. I think I might have answered it in my notes. On line 22, the MMA dues, the 250 disappeared off of there. $250 was on the last one, and it's
Oh,
not
so it does
now.
look like that one was also reduced.
Line 22. I was just curious, it wasn't on there, I was comparing them, and that was gone. The numbers still add up to 30,000, I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, it was carried over from the original,
year
the
before.
budget. It wasn't increased. I dropped that back down to the 68. So one of the things you have to keep in mind when you look at this, because Kevin, you haven't been through a budget process with us yet. Oftentimes, some of these things are our best guess. And also, these amounts that you have in front of you, like what we had spent, many of them are only as of March 1st. So there's a lot of quarterly payments that we would make. So like I know you referenced the mapping, we hadn't spent that. Well, it's because there's payments that we haven't made yet that would come out of there. Because if you look at mapping in the year prior, we spent 2,000. We budgeted 2,500 because we know that we've got a contract of those payments that are going to have to come out with the new
Those
mapping
were
and that kind of
like
stuff. So most of these line items in all of these budgets are just as tight as they possibly can get. And we'll discuss that more when we get to the next article. But that's where this is. So when you receive this wages and benefits for all the employees, it is lump sum everything. So it's their insurances, their retirement, our FICA, any sort of the Family Medical Leave Act piece. It includes each and every single individual and all of that, and we just lump sum it all together. And that's been done and has been a council practice for several years when it got to a point where we actually had committee discussions and debates over individuals' raises within those meetings, and that was not something that is allowed to happen. So that's why that's there. But certainly if you'd had any questions beforehand, anytime we look at these, don't hesitate to contact us, because some of this stuff we can drill down a little deeper for you and get it. And we can get it for anybody. It is public information, but we do try to honor what the employees have for a little bit. But
Just to reiterate a little bit more on that for the public, so when we talk wages, let's just say $1 an hour wage at a 40-hour week. We look at it as an individual, well, they're getting a $40 raise. Well, when it comes to the employer, which is us, the town, it's not just a $40 raise. It is like the FICA and FUTA match, your Social Security and Medicare match. It's main PERS for retirement. It's workers' comp insurance. It's health insurance. So when we look at a 3 or 5%, we're looking at all those things Michelle's already factored into in-depth per person, overtime's factored in, our cost as the employer's factored in. So when it looks like, well, they got a $5,000 raise, no, they didn't. They probably got a $3,000 raise, but because of the taxes that we're on the hook for and retirement, then that's the overall cost for that employee. And oftentimes we forget that, especially as an employee. We look at our bottom line, well, I only got $10. Well, no, it cost $20.
Right.
They don't see that. So I just want to reiterate, there's a lot more depth in a budget like this with 7 employees that's factored in. Holiday pay, overtime, vacations, all of that is compensated. Michelle's got a great formula. She's got it down to a penny. So no different than we voted in the 3 new firemen. We know what contract says and what it's going to cost us if they take the maximum plan, and that's what we have to budget for. So I hope that helps clarify it just a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Beyond what she said. So we have a motion and a second. We have any more discussion on this item 25-67? All those in favor? 4-0. Item 25-68, order that the town council hereby authorizes the use of contingency funds as may be necessary as of June 30th, 2025 to cover expenditures that may exceed the annual budgeted amount.
all right, this
We
is
get a
where
motion first, and then I'll have Michelle.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Council Thibodeau, second by Dr. Townsend. Michelle, going to let you
Okay.
start with discussion.
This is a standard article that we do every year in June. we oftentimes, when the council votes on this, we don't know exactly if we're going to go over or not. I can tell you right now, you do have 2 department budgets that I am concerned about. One of them is the fire station. When I ran the reports right before this meeting, it is currently $33,000 over budget. However, it is being given a thorough review, because one of the things that we do throughout the course of the year is that we may have a capital eligible repair that we will charge to the operating budget, but if it comes time to the end of the year, that may need to get moved to the capital reserve account. The other department that is about to go over and is approximately $1,000 over is the community center. And the reason why is because we had to spend over $600 on rodent control that we didn't budget for, and we had another repair that came in at about $700. That's how tight these budgets are budgeted. So these minor little things can throw us for a pretty big loop. I need to look at that budget and see if there's anything that we can charge to building capital reserves, but I don't think so. So what we do have is a contingency fund. It is one of our capital reserve accounts. It currently has $59,711.05 in it. We used to, every year, appropriate money to contingency. We stopped that process probably 5-6 years ago. We weren't using it. We don't typically use it. It is one of those pieces where it's nice to know that it's there if you need it and an emergency occurs. It is something that you're allowed to do. It's been appropriated for this purpose, but it is not an account that grows. It is not an account that we currently actively put any additional money in, because one of the things that we don't do is run our budgets based upon, well, we always have contingency. That's not what we do. Our department heads pay very, very close attention to all of their lines all of the time. The issue in the current issue with the fire department, plain and simple, is the lack of staff that we had throughout the first half of the year and the volume of overtime that we had to pay out that was at a much higher rate. While we were not paying someone, an individual salary, and we weren't paying someone's insurance and all of those pieces, it just is not enough to compensate. We do think that there are some adjustments we can make to that, some repairs that we had done to some of the equipment that we can move. But I'm not going to know until this final payroll is in on Monday and everything is done. But we are actively working on this. But as of right now, those are the only 2 budgets that I'm currently concerned about. And like I said, the community center might be okay. So then what happens is, I will report back to you at your next meeting if we needed to use those funds for any of these offsets and why and what that was for. So yes, it's good that contingency is there, but we do, and we always keep in mind how tight these budgets are. But there really is, the fact that this building was full of mice.
Unexpected expenses.
And there's no wiggle room for it. So that is how tight that they are. So that's what this is.
So I'm also sure there's other departments that may have surplus funds that didn't spend all their budget.
And
those
there
would
are.
go to undesignated fund. So, ultimately, it's going to be a wash in a $8 million town budget.
Right.
A $34,000 shortage in 2 departments, and not knowing.
But it's still.
Maybe there's an $80,000 overage in all the others. I
Right.
think it's a wash.
But it's still, you're still required to stay
Yeah.
within the amount appropriated at town meeting for that.
No, I
that
understand, but.
Yep. But yeah, no, it's that is the only thing that we're worried about. So the rest of them are all doing
Okay.
well.
Sounds good. That was the biggest part of my question, was when you report on how much gets used.
Yep. It's as soon as we know. So
Yeah.
the other piece is that you'll see throughout the month of July and sometimes even August, you'll end up having 2 warrants, right? So while we try, and everybody today was on the phone to anybody that owed them an invoice to try to get those in, to get those out in this warrant, because we're going to close the fiscal year out on Monday. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and funds that were meant to be expended in the prior fiscal year will get back charged to those departments. But we'll approve 2 warrants, one for the current fiscal year and one for the old fiscal year, until those all get caught up. And that will happen throughout the month of July, like I said. So until, it may be August before we know the final number, but we'll hopefully know soon. But as soon as we know, you'll know.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 4-0. Eighth order of business, council workshop and other business. Discuss other council business. We'll start with Councilor Kitchen.
I would like to add an action item for our next meeting, if possible, to discuss TV recordings or Facebook or whatever we can for our standing committees on Crossroads.
You want discussion item or
Discussion item.
discussion? Yep.
What's the difference between discussion and action?
We vote. So you,
Action is something you vote on?
Yes.
All right, so discussion.
So we'll discuss it, and then we'll table it to an action item for the following if
Perfect.
if we get
Yeah.
there.
Perfect.
Okay.
This week, I spoke to a couple residents. I guess this question would be for Michelle. I don't know. But we had an ambulance, it looked like, over at the fire station. There were some questions about, a lot of questions about what it was, what we were doing. The reason why I bring it up is I think we may have, depending on why it was there, I think we may have missed a golden opportunity per one of our council goals of being transparent with the community, of maybe making that open to the public to see what we're potentially getting, if that was the case. If it was I know that we had already talked about using money out of the equipment fund for Med 1 in the past. If that was the case of what we're going to do, I think we can involve the public if that's something we're going to do. Have them come look at it, kind of open house. This is what we're doing with your money. This is what we're thinking. Instead of it sitting there and then people, it just leads to conspiracy theories of like we're trying to hide something. I don't want to be that guy that we're trying to hide something.
So I think I've been very transparent. I've only been on council for 6 months. We've met with Delta. They've been to numerous meetings. Obviously, they're worried about their future. I've said continuously over and over again, I'm going to say it again right now, we need to do our due diligence and be prepared for what Delta brings us next. Or if another community member, such as in Oakland, Sydney, pulls out of Delta and Delta folds, you know, we have to be prepared on.
I'm not questioning your transparency.
No, but so if we're going to listen to conspiracy theories about we're hiding things, we're not hiding anything. It's up to Chief Leary and the fire department to bring the best interests of the fire department to us. And I don't need to know the day-to-day operations of we're going to look at an ambulance tomorrow. They'll look at it, decide if they have something that they find is feasible. We have contingency funds or equipment reserve funds for those specific accounts. And I think at that point, we make our best decision based on that. I don't want to run the day-to-day operations of any given department. No different than Bruce needing a skid steer, goes out, gets the RFPs, we're transparent about it. Obviously, people are bidding on this equipment. No different than the building committee asking for the RFPs we have now. So I think our process is very good. It's difficult for a council when we only meet in public and we have these discussions to say, well, you guys are hiding things or you're not being transparent.
I think you're missing, maybe I didn't clarify. This subject has been very contentious with the public. I think when we do, I would just recommend to Chief then, if we're doing something like that, when we're bringing it in, hey, we're bringing this in to look at it. There's people that like to look at it and say, this is awesome, or this is garbage, because eventually they're going to be voting on it. You know, I don't question what he does on a day-to-day, but that's not my business. All I'm saying is if we're doing something as contentious as this is, whether we agree with the whole ambulance situation or not, the Med 1, whatever the case may be, I think it was potentially a golden opportunity for the public to say, for us to say as a town, hey, we're looking at this, it's going to be in the front of the station for a day, feel free to swing by and take a look. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
It's not about your transparency, our transparency, town manager. I'm just saying this is a very contentious, and it leads to people to think that we are up to something, regardless if we believe that or not. That's all I'm saying.
it's a good example of hindsight, really.
We'll be doing it in the future, you know, I'm sure. I'm just trying to get people to
I think items like
understand
that are us doing our due diligence, our department heads doing their due diligence to prepare us for what may come next. And I understand what
with
you're
that.
saying about being open about it. Also, sometimes that's a deterrent. That's a way to drive the price up. That's a way to get competition to step in and derail something that hasn't even brought to our attention yet. So it's a double-edged sword at times. It's not always, well, we're looking at this, we haven't decided, and I just think as far as the ambulance goes, it's been contentious, it's been hot. Delta's worried, like I said, they've been in here numerous times. They've been very transparent. They've showed us their books, you know, they're worried.
I agree with that.
We're their largest service area left. Waterville and Winslow are gone. Hurt them tremendously. And it being in the forefront of the newspaper right now with Waterville wanting
Right.
another ambulance and 8 more personnel and not giving factual numbers, to be honest. You know, you're not hiring 8 people for $600,000.
No,
It's not going
that's
to
not
happen. So it arises where you get a lot of misinformation when it hits the wrong social media page or the wrong person and creates more problems than we may need. But I do understand it. It's how you take it. It could be an opportunity, you know, for a positive thing. It could also be an opportunity for a derailment. So, Michelle, do you?
I think
do you
that's
wanna add
valid.
anything?
The only thing I was going to add is even I didn't know that that vehicle was coming until that morning. Right, so in hindsight, you're absolutely correct, and if it is something that they arrange to have happen again, it is something that they could try to do and have that happen. Sometimes they're just spur of the moment, and we just don't have that kind of time, but yeah. And I know people did stop. There were several individuals who did come to the station once word got out, wanted to look at it, took pictures of it, all of that kind of stuff. So I do know that the public was aware. But it wasn't an event that we had planned because, like I said, we didn't know ahead of time. So
The only thing I guess I would chime in on that is actually what you said to lead off the meeting tonight was actually perfect. But if we could have said that somewhere, even on just as in hindsight, that's a great recommendation. It's like, this is what it is.
that's all it was.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Councilor Thibodeau.
Well,
I have a couple more things.
Sorry, Councilor Kitchen, go ahead.
I would also like to discuss, either at the next meeting, I would say in the month of July, reviewing our goals. I did get an email from Michelle that had updates of the goals that we had. I think it's something we talked about before that we should do periodically. I think we need to set time aside to make sure that we're marching to those goals and we're, you know, where we're at, what the barriers are, so we can be successful.
I think part of those goals may need to be topics like this, where we have open ambulance discussion, where we have open other buildings that we may be planning down the future. To be able to come in with an idea or a plan, because we don't meet. These committees aren't always in place.
Yeah. Well, in January, we went and looked at our
Yeah.
goals, and I think just having that sheet halfway through the year would be a good idea. And then we can just see how we are doing and see if we're on target with what our goals were for this year. So maybe we can get that sheet, Michelle, and look at our goals, our standards and
I'd like to
objectives.
see our goals move to the beginning of the fiscal year, because we're going to constantly take in new members like myself or Council Kitchen.
Early on.
And you come in January and you're not used to it, you're not prepared, and it would be better to look at it more balanced at the beginning of the fiscal year, talk about it ahead of time, have an idea, an opportunity to look through it, because as a new council member, you have no idea what suggestions to make or what you want to work towards.
And it's a valid idea because
Yeah.
we spend a big part of our first half of the year dealing with the budget.
Yes.
Right, so then now this is the second half of the year may not be as contentious, but it's a lot more fun
Yeah.
because you actually can be progressive and actually looking at the future. And I think
And you have an opportunity to get more feedback from the
Yeah.
public.
Right.
You get to hear from the constituents what
Right.
they want, and
And
we can
then
add that to our goals.
You could, again, review it
Yeah.
in December at the end of the year to see how you're doing.
Sure.
That, if that would work. I
So
understand that.
I really, I'd like to move that to the July agenda instead of doing it at beginning of, it's align it with our fiscal year.
Yeah.
Just makes more sense to me.
The last thing I have is 9 days from now, we're going to be celebrating Independence Day. As we all know, it's more than just fireworks and cookouts. It's about freedom, unity, courage of, I would say, I think it's the courage for those that stood for our liberty.
Our ideals as Americans. Yeah.
Especially, those that went before us, so that we can sit in meetings like this with our civil liberties, and I don't mean to get choked up, but it's important to me.
Amen. It's an important part of this country.
Yep.
That's what makes us different.
And sometimes it's often overlooked and taken for granted.
And you don't know how many beers I'm probably gonna have to buy for choking up or doing whatever. People are giving me a hard time, so
I'm emotional. I love it.
that's all I have. Sorry.
No, not
don't
at
be-
all.
don't-
Thank
never
you.
apologize.
Again, thank you for your service. It's nice to be able to serve on a board like this
Yep.
with two service members, Council Lawrence as well. And you guys dedicated your life to our country, and thank you for your service and all those who are going to celebrate the 4th as well. Council Thibodeau.
Well, I think it's time that we have a discussion about the hockey arena. So if we could put that on for the next agenda, under discussion. We need a plan. And I know that there's other entities that are going to be involved, but if we don't start working on it now, it's just going to be put off over and over again, and I don't think that that is what we need for the town.
No, and I think that's a great, I think we've all talked about it, and actually I think that needs to be probably another committee, but it needs to be somebody so it's focused on a monthly basis of plans, development, sponsors, all those things, actually making, looking at financially and assessing it. So, Agreed. And if we don't start it, it'll be 5 years from now.
Yep.
I'd
We
like
have
to
to
see
keep it going.
in discussion and transparent.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of questions, and I don't have any answers, so. No, that would be great. Councilor Townsend?
So I actually just have a few. One would be the clarification. Actually, Michelle, you mentioned it, a clarification of the MSAD 49 budget and what that is, whether it's their budget meeting or whether it's the last passed one, just so we have clarification from the MMA. The next one was actually it's been kind of touched on with the ambulance concerns in Waterville, and now there's the discussion that Delta may be charging Waterville for coverage as well. I think it's where we need to start assessing where that all stands for us, and negotiating with Delta and see how that. I mean, as part of I think we've always talked about it. That we have to look at all options, but I think that's a part of a bigger discussion that you may be looking at. Some type of regionalization could help us, but I think there's a lot. It's actually a very ripe time to have that discussion. So that's something as we move forward into the fall months. I think it'd be wise, and probably right now even. And kind of dovetailing on that, and I'm not trying to step in, and it doesn't have to be me, but I do think having somebody from this council in on the negotiations with Benton, I think would be wise. I think it just helps us to understand. I totally trust you, Michelle. I totally trust Chief Leary, but I think it's just wise that we have a council member involved too. And the last one was actually working with some of our resilience programs. The need for a cooling center in Fairfield, Maine is very rare, but it's something we should be looking at for future future occurrences. The library stepped up and was open on both days. Of course, that was their normal service, but that was helpful. There were SOS and the Victor Grange helped as well. So with providing fans, I'm not sure if anybody picked up on them, but those were things we did for the community. But that's something we should actually look into our resilience program as well. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. I don't have a whole lot to add other than I hope everybody has a safe, happy 4th of July. Enjoy the time with your family. Please be safe. And fireworks are always a hot topic on social media. A reminder, you have neighbors, and you may have neighbors with PTSD or animals and pets that don't exactly like fireworks, so just try to please be courteous and friendly to your neighbors, and remember they're there as well. So I don't have anything more. Thank you all. So the next regular meeting for the Fairfield Town Council will be on Wednesday, July 9th, 2025, to be held as a hybrid meeting in council chambers and via Zoom at 6:30 p.m. At this time, we'll recess. Council will recess to sign all documents and require the signatures of council members.
Motion to recess?
Motion to second.
Motion and second.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.